Good morning, everyone. As Mr. D said, there's a lot of uncertainty as we exist today with the casinos and what the Des Plaines casino effect will have on us, what the governor will do in signing a bill, and we faced as much uncertainty last week. We learned late or Monday that the casinos may not seek any further legal action in order to hold up this money that was being held in the Equity Trust Fund. Everybody had speculated all day Monday whether it was going to come or not, and then Tuesday came around and there were a number of rumors that the casinos had not filed. A stay that they received earlier or in a preceding week had expired Monday evening, and these monies were to become available on Tuesday. So feverishly, the industries, the racetracks, their lawyers, everybody's trying to track down these rumors and to see if the casinos actually had another legal remedy or were going to file for another legal remedy in order to hold up these monies. With the speculation that these monies would become available, we had discussions with some members of the ITHA, and we asked that we should get a meeting first thing Tuesday evening and start to work through some of these issues. Our schedules wouldn't allow that to happen, and we had a meeting scheduled for Wednesday. During that time when these meetings were being scheduled, we were all thinking of different formulas of, okay, what are we going to do with this money? How are we going to distribute it? We came up with one idea. The ITHA came up with one idea. And during this whole time, the Illinois Racing Board is trying to reconcile on Wednesday how much money each racetrack gets, how much money the tracks are supposed to distribute or allocate into purses. They came out with a first initial blush calculations. We got those. We started to work from those. Later on in the day, they came out with a new set of calculations late on Wednesday. And during that time that those last calculations were distributed, we had a meeting and we started to talk about how these monies would be distributed. We had two different approaches. We thought that the approach of utilizing this money over 3 years gave us the security that we needed to be able to survive for the next 3 years until something else comes along, most notably slots. Again, there were no assurances on those slots. So we all agreed that utilizing 10% of the money in 2011, 30% in 2012, 30% in 2013, and 30% in 2014 provided us with that security. We also felt it was very important that with some of the positive things we were hearing about the governor signing the legislation, the slots bill, and working through a trailer bill became very positive, that if slots were to enter the picture before 2014 or during 2013, that we would need to readjust, take a look at what those casinos or what the slots operations would generate here, and then reallocate that money. So we wanted to maintain flexibility. Unfortunately, our focus got off the solutions and off the calculations and the distributions on Wednesday, and the meeting was ended. Early Thursday morning, we received the final figures from the Illinois Racing Board. There were some calculation errors on the distribution of these monies. We also discovered on Thursday that there were some deposits missing from the money that was to be allocated to purses at Arlington Park. On Thursday evening, the accounting department and the Illinois Racing Board, or the Department of Revenue who distributed those monies, reconciled those payments on Thursday evening. On Friday morning, the money was transferred from the escrow account that we were legally bound to keep that money in and put into the purse account. At that time, again, we felt that since the discussions had ended, that the folks who were not involved in those discussions but most affected by this money should get the money right away. We used the distribution formula of 10% this year, 30% of the next 3 years, and we made adjustments for overpayments and so forth to the purse account, and we said we're going to distribute the money right away, in which we did. So we distributed that money to you on Friday. Since that time, we've had a very successful million The purse account was positively affected by this. And this is a perfect example of how we feel it is important to calculate this out over 3 years and take that money over 3 years, and that is the base. That is the base. Let's just call it $5 million for an example. There will be $5 million available each year, 2012, 13, and 14, and that's just an example. That's not a number that we want to use for a figure. But that would be the base. And then whatever's earned in purses would be added to that and distributed out. Well, the million's a perfect example. As we see a positive impact on the purse account, we need to be able to make adjustments to that and be able to distribute those monies. But how we're going to do that and in which manner, we have to be able to work together and agree upon. So we look forward to some of the very positive things that have come with this money, some of the very positive things that have come with the million. And we'd like to continue to work together towards positive solutions and progressive discussions regarding the impact fee monies and its distribution. Again, we don't know what these casinos are going to bring. We feel a conservative approach is the best approach. And I think we're all in agreement that the split of the monies, 10 this year and 30% over the next 3 years, is the most reasonable. But we also ask for the flexibility that if something new does enter this industry that affects those distributions, that we react to it in the most appropriate way that's within the best interest of the industry. Mr. D, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that. I hope that provides you with some clarity in the events that transpired over the week and how these monies became available and when they became available. You know, you would think that 96 hours isn't a long time, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday were very, very long days in trying to determine exactly what was going on with these monies. So, Mr. D, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that. Does anybody have any questions regarding any of the statements that we were made?
Yes, what you said is all true from a business standpoint. There's no question about that. Thing is, what's the opposition to it? Who's making the opposition and why?
In our agreement with the ITHA, it's, we have an agreement or a provision that states the monies, if become available, would be allocated over 2011, 2012, 2013. That means 3 calendar years or 3 race meets. It seemed that we were all in agreement that was our understanding with the splits of the 10, 30, 30, 30. But now there's some disagreement whether we should escalate that or not. We again feel that what was tendered to us, this proposed split, is the right thing to do. I'm not sure why we haven't had that. We did submit, and many of you may have seen, the agreement that was submitted to the ITHA that listed those provisions or outlined those requirements and what was our understanding of the agreement, and also has the provision that states if slots come or another subsidy comes that we reevaluate and we adjust. We feel that having the security of the 3 years, not knowing whether slots are coming, gives us a chance to survive for the next 3 years until we know exactly what's coming our way.
Now, do all the other racetracks feel this is the way to go?
I've read only, you know, from the Daily Racing Form and from websites that there is an agreement over 3 years with the other thoroughbred racetrack. Well, I haven't seen anything other than what I read in the Daily Racing Form and on the websites.
So this is just an Arlington proposal for Arlington and the race meet at Arlington.
Correct. We have no authority to act on behalf of any of the other thoroughbred racetracks.
Okay, thank you.
Tony, I got a question for you. Over the course of the next 3 years, the money that has been accumulated, who will collect and how will that be interest on that money? Would it be put back into the purse fund, or where does this money go?
The money right now
that's being held by the track for us.
The money currently is being kept in a separate interest bearing account and was transferred with the interest that accumulated on the purses during the time that the monies were held up by the riverboats and casinos.
So that will stay in that interest-bearing account for the Horseman.
That's correct.
Okay.
Tony, we got a letter that the ITHA is passing out. About 10% of that money is $2.6 million. And they say the proposal that you guys have formulated that is going to give us only less than $1 million. Is that true?
Well, there's money that has to be deducted for overpayments. What we have to do is, it gets very complicated, but what happens is you start earning purse money really in October of this year that's applied to next year, and as we start using that money, and as Mr. D mentioned, we had a purse overpayment. So what we have to do is we have to deduct that overpayment amount from the amount being distributed this year, and that's how we get to about it comes down to about a 2.2 or a distribution of just over $1 million. It's about $1,040,000 or something along those lines. But again, we have a positive impact from the $1 million that we now have to maintain flexibility and adjust, because again, at the end of the day, we want a zero balance in the purse account. So we have a positive benefit coming.
Where were we overpaid at? What number?
Tone, and that's typical with all these monies that were being distributed. For example, the overpayment at Hawthorne, I read in the Daily Racing Form, was 2.7. They're shaving that off as well. What the timing of that is and so forth, I don't know.
We could work off that overpayment right now, and this 2.6 million that you're estimating, we could generate higher purses in September or something.
Right,
Is
just
that
as
true?
you did in the million. So the overpayment was taken out of that money, the projected overpayment, and then we have to have a little room to move either way, positive or negative, to that. So that's how we get to that amount. Well, you know, it changes week to week. I haven't seen the final figures from the million because that has a positive effect, but you know, we try and create a zero tolerance point where you kind of start over again. So because of these changes in the money just being released and the positive effect on the million, we look at that each and every week. I haven't seen that. We usually get them on Wednesday. My time is well, 4 days last week, and all 3 or 4 days this week has been spent talking about these issues.
Mr. Tony, I got a question. We're talking about bringing better horses to this track. That way we can have a better quality of races. I understand, you know, some owners, you don't want to get better horses because the purses don't get better.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a kind of problem for us too. We had to train it what we got, and we had to deal with the horses we have. You know, we wish everybody can have $1 million horses. That way we can run here. But we run the horses that only our owners can afford it.
Right. Well, that's the whole point of this money, is put an infusion in there. That's the whole point of getting it to you this year, so you have something in advance to work with. This would be an easy task if we were just starting our race meet. It's a very simple calculation, you know, and just spreading it out over 3 years, having it fall with, you know, and having access to the money 28 days, you know, before the end of the race meet makes things kind of difficult, especially when, you know, the purse structure is, or how you calculate purses is very complicated, and it changes from day to day to day, depending on how much money is earned and handle that translates into purses. One day it could be up, the next day it could be down, and you got to look at the trend over a long period of time and project out over 86 days. It gets easier as you start to get down to day 70, 75, into day 86, because that point in time that you're projecting it over becomes more reliable in your calculations. So.
I'm just kind of speaking because I listen to a lot of people and what other people have been upset about. And the first question I have is, obviously that 15% decrease in purses on a field size of 6 or less, will that be eliminated with the infusion of this money? Because if you look at it with the reduction of purses from book 5 to book 6, it's almost like that's a 30% reduction,
right,
essentially. Because if we had gotten this increase with the purses in book 5, but the difference, we get the infusion after they've dropped the purses already. So essentially, it isn't a 21% increase.
No, that's
Or-
been eliminated. When the money was released, that was eliminated. That was all put into the
Okay.
calculation also. You know, we talk about how much, that was all put into the calculation of the overpayment and how much money would be released immediately. So that was something we felt we didn't want to continue on and give something very positive. And again, we're trying to put the money in the hands of the owners and trainers as quickly as possible and as much as possible.
Was there a decrease in book 6? There wasn't. So I don't know what's Leanne talking about.
Yeah, you know, there shouldn't have been a purse reduction, and it's listed in there. I'm not familiar with what you're referencing, but if you want me to take a look at it, we could take a look at it later. But in any event, you know that this money is here. The 6 and 7 horse field was immediately lifted. That's something that we felt very strongly about. That wasn't even something that was up for negotiation. That was just going to be done. That was never put into the equation in our calculations that would continue. Anybody else with any other questions? Well, Mike, hopefully this money provides an infusion into racing that allows you to earn more money, to invest into horses, to bring more horses out to the track, and hopefully it increases field size. And if field size increases, we hope the public reacts to that, and with handle and bets more on our product, and with the betting more on our product, again, we split 50-50, that commission roughly in the overall handle in commissions that are provided to the track for track uses and for the purses. We hope that the public reacts positively to this.
Okay, what about if we were to cut a race a day so we could increase the field size? We'd save purse money and increase and cut the deficit, because you would get fuller fields and more handle.
We are required to run a certain number of races, Mike. With our contract, we have to run 830 races. And I think also that is also, with this new money coming in, that would be detrimental to the purse account. I have to look at it and calculate it out, but you know, thinking about it, when you earn approximately $10,000 to $9,000 a race, cutting that race out, that when you do that, you have to have 11 times the amount of wagering to make up for that. So if you cut 10,000, you got to get 11 times that money back just to break even in the purse account. So I think that from what I've heard, it's the number of racing opportunities that is most desirable by the folks that put the horses out there on the track.
Yeah, because we can't fill the races we got, and then you tell us the handle's down because no one's betting. And if you cut a race a day, if you got an average field of 8, you're going to have 32 horses extra next week to fill races. If 16 or 18 of them get in, you're going to have 48 horses next week, which will increase your field size and your handle.
That sounds like a plausible outcome, but also, Mike, I think that with this infusion of money, we need to give this an opportunity to work. We need to give you, the horseman, the opportunity to race and see what really happens. The nice thing is we have a minimal amount of impact because we're only racing 25 more days, but I think it's a sufficient amount of time when you're talking about a quarter of your race meet to get some data and take a look at it and say, hey, yeah, did it really work? Was the infusion of money, did it increase field size? If it did it increase handle? If it increased handle, it would increase purses as well. So I think we owe this the opportunity, as this money was intended for, to be able to be used and be able to gather that. So, Mike, we'll be able to answer that on September 25th and much more accurately.
Okay, what about what they print on the stall thing? It sort of makes you nervous when it says maybe you won't be here next year.
Well, I haven't seen that, Mike, but
it's printed every day on the overnight.
Mike, what we're here,
top priority in 2012.
Mike, what we're here to talk about today is the impact fee money and how it was applied and how we got to where we're at today. But Mike, we could talk about that later if you like.
Was the Horseman wanted them to give 25% instead of 21, and it to be given out in 2012 and 2013, not 2014. Isn't that what this was about to begin with? That's what I understood anyway.
No, we were working along the lines of some very progressive discussions, and egos and emotion entered into it, and at that time, because the discussions became less productive, and we said there's no reason to proceed because we're not working towards a solution. And it was our busiest week of the year, and we felt the most important thing was to get the money out immediately or as quickly as possible to the Horsemen, and we took that action.
I had a question about the poly track. I heard that.
Well, before we go on, we're here to talk about this certain issue. If you have other issues related to field size or related to what's on an overnight or a poly track, we could discuss those on the side here afterwards, or I'm willing to set aside some time to talk to you. But we'd like to focus on something very positive that's happening in our industry today, and that's the delivery of this impact fee money. But I'll be happy to talk with you later. Anybody else? Mike's ran out of questions. Thanks, Mike. I get to go get some coffee now. Thank you. All right, well, on behalf of Mr. Duchessois and myself and Arlington Park, we thank you so much for coming and spending time with us to understand this issue. Mr. D, I'm sorry.
If someone has some questions, if you're like we are, as soon as the meeting is over, you'll think of 5 additional questions. Just put it on a piece of paper and send it up, and we'll do our very best to answer whatever questions you have. The main thing we have to do is be able to communicate back and forth with you so you understand what we can do and we understand what you need. And there's always room to get that thing worked out. But when we don't know and people just go off and guess and complain, and then we start getting back, well, it's just a complaint. We want to work with you. Our job here is to make sure that we have an industry that gets back to profitability. And we make sure that we have a management team that's able to do it. We hadn't had that in the past. We have it now. And if we work together, there is no such thing as working individually. When you stop and look at our industry, on one side, you have the people that grow the wheat, the hay, the oats, the agricultural aspect of it, the trainers, and all the rest to get the horse up to the race. The other side, you have the people that buy the mutual tickets. The racetrack is sort of like the county fair. It brings the product to the market, that's at the racetrack, and the buyers on the other side come over and buy it. And if one breaks down, all 3 break down. So we have to work together. We can't operate without you, and you can't operate without us, and then we both lose the customer, and then we're out of business.
Anything else? Well, thank you, everyone. There's coffee and sweet rolls and juice and water if you want to take something with you.